lucky enough to have with us someone with a very impressive academic and professional background, both in the private and the public sector. And no one else better to talk about financial innovation than the Secretary of Finances and the Treasury of Hong Kong since 2020. Under his portfolio has the highest responsibilities related to finance and innovation. And we have some very tough questions for him. And the first one, Christopher, welcome to the summit, welcome to the stage. This is your first time, but I hope that this is not the last one.
Yeah, definitely not.
Repeat next year, and you come back every year to share with us what's going on in Hong Kong. So we have been reading the news for the last years, and we learn about Hong Kong's ambition, very clear ambition to become a virtual asset hub. So how has evolved? How is evolving? What are the last developments in this with this purpose?
Yeah. I think after all, it is a journey because a few years back, the government issued a policy statement highlighting our stance towards virtual assets, I think more broadly. I think our stance is very simple. On the one hand, we acknowledge the potential risk because of the anonymous nature of many transactions on blockchain, is subject to money laundering, terrorist financing, and others. But that said, despite the risk, there are tremendous technological benefits that we can reap in the process. Because with blockchain, we can potentially reduce a lot of inefficiencies across the value chain. At the same time, unleash a lot of potential in terms of reducing the cost of transaction and also the friction of transaction. So our approach is very simple. When we try to regulate this sector, what we try to do is to ensure, first of all, it's going to grow healthily and sustainably. And secondly, we are going to have a holistic regime in a sense that apart from looking at from the risk mitigation angle, we also look at it from an investor protection angle in such a way that our investors will be duly protected when they involve in these activities. And to be more specific, since the announcement a few years ago, in fact, we have come a long way in terms of how these blockchain or Web3 ecosystem in the financial world in Hong Kong has developed. Right now, we have 6 virtual assets, spot ETFs. 3 are Bitcoin and 3 are Ethereum, traded on exchange. And for those that are related to Ethereum, I would say actually it's the first of the world to be tradable on exchange. And apart from the spot ETFs I mentioned, we also have 3 virtual asset futures ETFs traded on our exchange. So it's on the product side in the private sector. So another angle to look at this is the government itself in terms of how we are facilitating innovation through our own efforts to have more use cases. And on that front, so far we have issued 2 sets or 2 batches of tokenized green bonds using blockchain. Because after all, Hong Kong, despite or irrespective of tokenization, we are already the fintech or the green financing hub of Asia. Right now, if you talk about the issuance of green bonds and loans, basically more than a third of those done by Asian companies are arranged through Hong Kong. And the reason that those 1/3 of Asian companies come to Hong Kong to arrange their green bonds and loans because of our investor base, which are international. That's why they can reach a broader investor base through Hong Kong. And we now further add to that, apart from the green element, we have the tech element by issuing the government itself tokenized green bonds twice. And in that context, what we are seeing is that on the one hand, it gives us tremendous efficiency gain, because what we saw is that with the adoption of blockchain in green bond issuance, the overall settlement days reduced from 5 to 1. That's number one. And number 2, in our second batch of green tokenized bonds, we have a multi-currency tranche covering, of course, euro, we are now in Europe, and also US dollar, renminbi, and also Hong Kong dollar. And through that process, when we issue that multi-currency tranche of tokenized green bonds, we are able to reach out to the global investors, both in Europe and the US, who will subscribe to our tokenized green bonds. So that again, is this a combination or marrying of both green and tech that has made Hong Kong coming a long way in terms of being a virtual asset or a gathering point for many of these enterprises. Just to give you a figure, right now we have more than 200 Web3 companies already in Hong Kong. And also at the same time, if you take a more broader view in terms of our startup ecosystem, which I'm sure most of you will be interested because all of you are startup background, entrepreneurs and successes in your respective fields. We have almost like 5,000 startups in Hong Kong. Of course, they come in different shapes and forms and industry backgrounds. But that said, a quarter of those 5,000 startups have their founders or entrepreneurs coming out of Hong Kong. And the reason I would say that they are willing to travel all the way to come to Hong Kong to set up their businesses is because, of course, the attractiveness of Hong Kong as an international city, and also at the same time, what Hong Kong has to offer as a connector for them, be it in the financing side, given the strength of our stock market, being an exit for many of these startups, at the same time, on the market side, offering access to the broader mainland market.
Okay. Is the industry responding to these developments the way you expected?
I would say the response has been surprisingly or overwhelmingly positive. Because when we announced the policy statement a few years ago as a start, we tried to articulate in our policy statement a number of things that we're going to do. First of all, apart from setting out our policy rationale to regulate the virtual asset ecosystem, we also try to identify the key initiatives that we are planning to do, including, of course, regulating the virtual assets exchanges, i.e. the virtual asset trading platforms, which I've already done. So far, we have 2 licensed, properly regulated virtual asset platforms in Hong Kong. At the same time, there are about 20 who are also applying now. So that aside, we also set out to do is we are going to launch the ETFs on the virtual assets spot market and also on the virtual assets futures, and that's already done. And going forward, I would say what we plan to do is to have a regulation for stablecoin, because apart from the government taking the lead in issuing tokenized assets, it's very important for us to have the private sector involved. And that's why we will soon, by the end of this year, have a law in place to regulate the stablecoin issuers. And the reason that we have to regulate them, because many of these stablecoins are very much akin to payment tools. Because after all, underlying these stablecoins are actually fiat currencies. So from a payment angle and also from a financial stability angle, we need to regulate. So the next question to ask is, under what principles we regulate them? And the principle is very simple and clear, in line with how we regulate other virtual asset classes, in a sense that we apply similar rules to similar risks that we see in similar activities. So despite the fact that these activities are taking place in the new finance or in the blockchain areas, if they exhibit similar risks, similar to those in the conventional financial world, we will subject them to similar regulation. To be more specific, an example, for example, when we regulate the virtual asset exchanges, now we already have, we require the exchange operator to segregate the assets of their clients from the exchange in such a way that if anything goes wrong for the exchanges, the client assets can be preserved. So I think all these safeguards are something that we built in, and we also try to regulate these new finance areas in line with how we regulate other businesses in the conventional financial world. So back to your question, I would say, Juan, is that the response has been overwhelming. At the same time, that's why we have now more than 200 Web3 companies already in Hong Kong from different parts of the world, and we definitely welcome more, especially those that are sitting here, to take an interest in our development and to see how you may take advantage of those.
And I guess that you will invite many of these potential players and entrepreneurs to move to Hong Kong. Before we end our conversation.
Yeah. And we welcome South Summit to Hong Kong as well. Yeah. So you can come en masse.
Christopher, Hong Kong is also an early mover to start explorations in CBDC. So how is it evolving, and how do you see the future for CBDC as Hong Kong itself and the platforms multi-CBDC participates on?
Our efforts on the central bank digital currency front, I think, can be broadly classified at different levels. And one level is more local, in the sense that we are trying to have our electronic e-Hong Kong dollar for our own market. At the same time, we are collaborating with our own country, which is also having an eCNY, the electronic yuan. And so the recent initiative that we had is to allow people in Hong Kong to store electronic CNY in their wallets in Hong Kong in such a way that when they cross the boundary back to the mainland, they can spend in the form of electronic CNY, electronic renminbi in the mainland. So this is more at the retail level. So another level of collaboration that we have on the central bank digital currency front is something more regional. That we have an initiative, what we call mBridge, which is under the auspices of the Bank of International Settlements. The idea is that through blockchain and also through the issuance of CBDC by the central banks of different jurisdictions, we try to settle the payments for cross-boundary trade among these countries. So right now, we have 4 countries or 4 jurisdictions participating, apart from China and Hong Kong, of course, and also at the same time, we have Thailand Central Bank, and also the Saudi Arabia Central Bank, who are already participating in our mBridge project. And what they do is that they try to settle the payments that is required on their trade financing side through CBDC. So we are very much looking forward to expand that, because after all, if you look at the whole way that this whole scheme has been constructed, it is hugely facilitating to allow more cross-boundary trade to settle through CBDC and alleviate a lot of the frictions and also inefficiencies that now you observe in the process. So as back to your question, I would say, Juan, we are doing that at different levels. At a more local level, in terms of e-Hong Kong dollar and also e-CNY, and also more broadly at the regional level, collaborating with the central banks in Thailand, UAE, and others in the context of the Bank of International Settlements of settling trade, financing through central bank digital currency.
But you also have plans to develop e-currency at the retail level, right?
Currency and?
Digital currency at the retail level. And allowing non-financial, non-banking financial institutions to issue tokenized assets?
Yes, yeah. I think one thing that we are very keen to do, similar to all of you, is that we see tokenization as a future of finance. So what we need to do is to ensure that Hong Kong, like other financial centers, would not miss out on that. And that's why what we try to do is, apart from the government taking the lead, issuing electronic Hong Kong dollar, at the same time issuing tokenized green bonds, and also we take the lead to allow virtual asset related spot and also futures ETFs listed on exchange. We also try to facilitate tokenization in the broader world in terms of other asset classes. And I think the most immediate example and also the most immediate case scenario will be tokenized deposits. Because Hong Kong is a very well-established financial center, right now among the top 100 banks in the world, more than 75 have presence in Hong Kong. And also on the insurance side, the top 20 insurers of the world, more than 11 basically have presence in Hong Kong. So our challenge or our opportunity, I would say, is to how better leverage these established financial institutions and to allow them to innovate, at the same time to take advantage of these broader trends of tokenization. So the next move, which we try to facilitate, is the tokenized deposits in such a way that the banks, among themselves, they can seamlessly settle those deposits in the form tokenized form in such a way that it can open up new possibilities for new innovation.
And coming back to the first question and the efforts of Hong Kong to become a leading hub in virtual assets, and how could you explain the audience, and this audience is made of people coming from everywhere, the difference today between different jurisdictions such as the United States, Europe, compared to Hong Kong, and how do you envision the involvement of these different jurisdictions in the coming years?
Hong Kong is a very open and inclusive society, and we also are very business-friendly in what we do. In terms of enticing or supporting or facilitating international businesses to operate in Hong Kong, we have dedicated agencies, what we call Invest Hong Kong, which is a government agency trying to facilitate more businesses from different parts of the world to operate here. And in fact, a bit of advertisements, Invest Hong Kong actually has a booth outside, and you can reach out to our colleagues there to see what you need to do if you're interested, try to develop your business in Hong Kong. That's number one. And number two, apart from getting the right people or knowing the right people, I think it's important for us to share with you what support that you will get in terms of startups in Hong Kong. And I would say there are a few, or actually many support that you can get. First of all, we are now running a fast-track program for Invest Hong Kong, basically to provide various types of matching opportunities to facilitate you to meet up with our financial institutions and others, corporates in the world, in Hong Kong in particular, to see how you can grow your business further. So this is a matching program and now open to application, and definitely welcome all of your participation through our contacts in the booth outside here of our Invest Hong Kong. And secondly, apart from these matching efforts, another key thing to note is that we in Hong Kong, with many accelerators, we have two actually. One is Cyberport, and the other is Science Park, basically host different types of industries in terms of growing their business. Like, for example, Cyberport, basically we have more than 1,000 fintech companies there. And what you have them is, apart from rental support in terms of subsidies, we also provide them with access to the broader market in the mainland, in particular, the Greater Bay Area. So I suppose not many of you are interested, or not many of you are aware of the Greater Bay Area, right? Anyone who are not aware of Greater Bay Area? No? So I suppose no hands, meaning many people don't know about Greater Bay Area. So the idea is that Hong Kong is a cosmopolitan city, of course. Its population has more than 7.5 million people. But casting our sight further up north, we are close to 9 cities in the Guangdong province of the mainland. Actually, it is the richest province of the mainland, takes up around like 12% of the whole country's GDP. And apart from the 9 Guangdong cities, we also have Macau and Hong Kong, which together, combined, become our Greater Bay Area, which is a population 10 times of Hong Kong, which is 80 million population. So for many of the fintech solutions being developed in Hong Kong, or more broadly, tech solutions, you can have a very broad market to test out and to sell your solutions. That's why I would say for entrepreneurs who are interested in Hong Kong has the right market for you, has the right support to you, and also has the right people to you. And the next challenge for us is to bring the South Summit to Hong Kong in such a way that you can know the right people, the right institutions, and the right support that you can get access to.
So you all have an invitation from the Secretary of Financial Services and the Treasury of one of the most vibrant entrepreneurship ecosystem in the world, Hong Kong. Thank you very much. A big hand for Christopher, please.
Thank you.